networking in the libraries. Before arriving at Dighington in 2008, he was system librarian at the College of New Jersey and library system manager, Unix administrator at Rider University Libraries. He earned his Master of Library Services.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I apologize because I'm French, so I don't speak English so well, and probably I will be the worst English speaker of this wonderful conference. So I apologize for all my English mistakes. As Ed said, I'm the founder of Biblib, a French company dedicated to open source and libraries. I served as Koha release manager since twice, in 2003, 2005, and last year I was also release manager for this software. The release manager is the guy or the woman, but until now it has just been man. The release manager is the guy who is responsible for managing the next release cycle of Koha. The release manager is responsible for coordinating the work all around the world of all the volunteers. First of all, let me do a small introduction about what is Koha. Many of you probably already know, I've heard about Koha, and some of you don't know, so I will start by explaining a little bit what is Koha about. Koha is an ILS. ILS means Integrated Library System. So it's a piece of software that can be used to manage your library. When I'm talking about library here, I'm talking about printed collections. Koha is not, the primary goal of Koha is not to manage digital collections. There are many tools that are, many open source tools that are efficient at doing that. Koha has been built since the beginning to manage printed collections. The second important thing about Koha is that it is a free software, free as open source software. It means that the source code of the application is available for free. You can download and use the software freely without asking anyone, without paying anyone. Many people ask a question no one can answer, and this question is, how many libraries are using Koha in the world? We don't know, because you don't have to request for any permission, you don't have to ask for anyone, you don't have to declare yourself. So usually we say between 2,000 and 5,000 libraries are using Koha in the world. You see that's a large range, between 2,000 and 5,000. Maybe that's more, we can't really know. Koha is an open source software, so it means you can look inside the software to see how it is made internally, and you have the permission to modify it, to adapt it to fit your needs. If there is something that is missing for your need into this software, you can add it if you have the skill. One important note I will just add is that and you can share the modification with the rest of the world. That's something very important. Koha is based on an international community of volunteers that are sharing their work and putting everything in the common place. I will speak about it in a few minutes. Just one side note. Some people fear to use an open source software, and because they think it's mandatory to contribute to everybody, the modifications they could do, it's not required. If you do modification for you, it is not mandatory at all to share the modification for the rest of the world. Just a question, is there some Koha users in this room? Now? Yeah? Wonderful. Do you know if you have a modified version of Koha, or is it an official version of Koha without any modification? Do you know? You have a modified one? And did you share the modification with the community?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah? Great. Sometimes people ask or or wonder about what does Koha mean. Koha is a word that means is a word from the Maori language, which is the New Zealand native language, because Koha started in New Zealand in 2000, and the word Koha in Maori language means gift, contribution, something you came with when you are invited. Okay, you are invited, you came with a Koha. I repeat, Koha is a software developed by an international community all around the world. We try to keep track of all the contributors that contribute code to Koha, and we reach 200 different identified contributors last month, or in December, I don't remember exactly. So it means there are 200 different people that contributed in the last 13 years, at least a few lines of code to this software. Of course, there is a group of main contributors that contribute since a long time and contribute a lot of code, and there is also a group of contributors that come just for a few days or a few weeks to contribute something, and once it's done, they are happy with the software and they stop contributing anything. Main contributors come from New Zealand, France, USA, but we also have contributors from Germany, United Kingdom, Spain, Italy, Switzerland, Argentina, Australia, Croatia, and India. Yes, there are some contributors to Koha in India. Is there one in this room? I don't think so. Savitra, the guy who made the pre-conference day presentations, used to be a contributor to Koha. So he's one of the 200 developers that made Koha possible. Koha is available in a lot of languages. As it is a free software, we also have an open source platform at translate.kohacommunity.org where you can translate Koha to your own language. If you want to translate Koha to any of the 90 Indian languages, 90, right? If you want to translate Koha to any of the Indian languages, just jump at this address and ask our translation manager. He's the person who is responsible for coordinating the translation effort, and he will set up a specific area for you where you will be able to start translating Koha to any language. I said Koha was an ILS, Integrated Library System. Just one slide to describe the features you can get in Koha. Of course, you get catalog management. Koha is a tool that lets you catalogate and search inside the catalog. And you can use either Mark 21 or Unimark standards as you want. If you are from Norway, you can also use Normark, but I don't think there is anyone from Norway here. In Koha, you also can find patrons management, so patron subscription registration, the duration of the subscription, the check-in and check-out permissions they have, etc., etc. For those who have some technical skills, you can connect Koha with an LDAP. You can also do single sign-on management with Koha. You can do shibboleth authentication and CAS authentication. Koha is also, of course, a tool that lets you circulate your books. You can check in, check out. Koha manages holds that can be placed either by your users or either by the librarians. Koha is RFID compliant. I think with all RFID vendors, well, all those that I know, Koha is compatible with. I think all of them are now using the same standard, so Koha is compatible with this standard, so it's okay. And there is also a self-checkout module inside Koha that you can activate to let your users do the check-ins and check-out by themselves without any librarians. It's an option. Well, by option, I mean, you get it when you install Koha, you can activate it or not activate it, depending on what you want. Koha also has a module to manage your serials. So serial subscription, serial receiving, claiming late subscription, etc., etc. Koha also has an acquisition module to manage buying books and journals and items, etc. Koha has a statistic module, and the last module is the OPAC, the public catalog that is available to the public. You can, depending on what you want, open your OPAC worldwide or just to your students, for example, if you are an academic library. It depends on how you want to set up your infrastructure. One important thing about Koha is that since the beginning, really the beginning, Koha is consortium oriented. It has been, the first version of Koha has been sponsored by, the first version of Koha has been sponsored by first a web server and a few other tools I will speak about in my next slide. As it is a web application, it is very easy to upgrade. Upgrade Koha on your server and you're done. Because all users just need a browser, and the first time they will connect to the server, the upgraded server, they will get upgraded version of Koha. Small technical points, there are packages built by the Koha community that make upgrade very, very easy if you are using a server running Debian, for example. That's very easy to upgrade. That's a technical question. Here is an incomplete but basic list of software you need to run Koha. There are more, but that's small technical things, so I didn't want it to be too specific about technical things. Basically you need three things. You need a web server, you need a database server, and you need a search engine. The web server, usually we use Apache. We can use something else, but by default, Koha is running under Apache. You need a database server, MySQL. There is a work in progress to be able to use another database, but for now you have to use MySQL. And a search engine, well, not catalog, search engine for the catalog, which is based on Zebra. All of those softwares, Apache, MySQL, Zebra, etc., are open source software, of course. Everything can be run under a fully open source platform. All of them, the Apache, MySQL, and Zebra, can be put on different servers if you have a very, very large library and need different kind of resources. It means also you can split those pieces on different virtual servers. And that's interesting in the case of cloud computing, because you can affect different resources depending on the kind of software. Well, you can have a medium-sized server, virtual server for Apache, a small-sized server for MySQL, and a small-sized server for Zebra, for example. If you put it on the cloud, you can change, upgrade, increase or decrease. You can increase or decrease resources on any of those three servers. Koha is quite pretty scalable. 10 universities in France are using it, the largest being Marseille University. I told you that's 47 branches, and that's more than 1.2 million items and 2 million check-in and check-out every year. And everything is installed on a medium-sized server. In this case, Marseille University didn't choose to go for cloud computing for various reasons. One of them being they have all the IT infrastructure on site, so they didn't want it to go for cloud. As a kind of conclusion for the architecture of Koha is that Koha was cloud compatible before the cloud existed, because all the pieces of Koha are web-based, so they can be put on the cloud. Where should you put your Koha server? Because if you remember what I just said, you just need a browser to run Koha and a server that will serve all your librarians and users. There are three options. The first option is to put Koha on the local server. The Koha is hosted on-site in your library, and you manage it inside your library. The second option is to have Koha hosted on the server that is also yours, but that is in a data center. I've heard from the previous presentation that you have some quite large data center in India, so you can put your server also, your Koha server, on a hardware that is not inside your library, but that is yours. So you control everything, and you are responsible for everything except the hardware, because the piece of hardware, well, you can even buy the hardware and put it yourself in the data center. And the third option is to host Koha on the cloud. In this case, you don't own any hardware, and you can even be not responsible and not responsible of the infrastructure, and even maybe on the software upgrade itself. I will talk about it later. How to choose between those three options? There are some things you should check and maybe write a sheet and say, this I have not, this I have, this I could, etc. And at the end, you will get a kind of grid, a decision option, and that will let you decide which option is the best for you. First question, what kind of technical skills do you have? Do you have on-site, or in your staff, technical skills that are enough to manage everything, including upgrades, backups, etc.? Or do you have technical skills that are lower than this, so you want to externalize this responsibility outside from your library? Second thing you should check is how your library organized from a building point of view. Is everything put in the same building, or everything split on a lot of buildings? I know the daily public libraries are using Koha. They started maybe 4 years ago to run Koha, and at the beginning there were only a few libraries, and they are increasing the size of the Koha catalog with all the daily public libraries, and of course they have a lot of different sites. Second question about your buildings is, do you have good internet access from everywhere? Another thing you should check is which downtime inside the library can you accept. Do you accept downtime? Well, 99% is the uptime, even downtime, I hope for you. 99% of uptime means your software will be unavailable 4 days a year, which can be quite huge. Well, the main question is, the downtime is completely different if your server is on-site or if your server is hosted outside on the cloud. Because if your server is on-site and you lost your internet connection, you don't care. Because you have your server on-site, so your intranet is still working, so you can access your Koha server. If your server is outside on the cloud or hosted, if your internet connection is broken, then you don't get any Koha anymore. Okay? So a very important question is, how trustable is my internet connection? Last question, is your library size stable or isn't it? For example, the daily public library, they started with 1 or 2 small libraries, maybe 10,000 items. Then they added some libraries, 1 lakh items. Then they added more libraries, 1 million items. Then they will add more, and at the end, I think that will be more than 10 million items, and I don't know, maybe 200 different libraries. So in this case, you have at the beginning a very small need, and at the end, daily we have a very huge need. So once you have the answer to all of these questions, you can try to find which is the best option for you. If you have a poor internet uptime, if you have available hardware and skills, if you are in a single building, if your needs are quite stable, then setting up Koha inside on a local server is probably the perfect, the best option for you. Marseille University, once again, sorry, is exactly in this case. Well, that's not a single building, except for single building. But they have available hardware, they are completely flat need because the collection is built and does not increase a lot. The number of libraries does not increase, so Marseille is exactly in this case. If you have a good internet uptime, large access need because you have 200 different libraries all around the city or all around the state, but if you have stable needs, you know how large will your library be, then maybe a hosted option will be a good option. Hosted option means you have a hardware, you know what's the size of the hardware, and it's usually cheaper than having something that can increase, decrease as you want. Last option, cloud. If you have a good internet uptime, if you have wide access needs, if you have the scalability needs, because like Delhi, you start with one library and we end with 200 libraries, and if you have a little bit less technical skills at hand, then cloud computing, cloud hosting of Koha is probably a good option. I want to speak now of something that I think is very, very important. All the questions I've spoken before on this slide are just technical questions. But there is one more question you should ask yourself, which is the privacy question. How much does it cost to use Google? Nothing, it's free. How much does it cost to use Facebook? Nothing, it's free. How does it cost to use Twitter? Nothing, it's free. But on the other hand, does all those services cost nothing to their providers? Of course, no. They have hardware, they have servers, they have developers, they have anything. So, what's the trick? Why is it free for you and not free for them? It's not a very long-term business model, you know? Something like that can be free because it's for non-for-profit or funded by volunteers. For example, the previous speaker spoke about some government-driven cloud. In this case, they can be free because they are managed by government, so they are not-for-profit clouds. It can be free because you want to convince people to buy something else after, or you want to enter a market, to enter an area. It's free, and once everybody wants it, it's not free anymore. But those three examples are irrelevant in this case. The trick here with Google, Facebook, and Twitter is that the money is in the data you produce. In fact, in France we say the user is the product. Facebook and Twitter, etc. Are trying to sell. Because if you know, if Twitter, for example, knows, or Facebook knows that you like this and you like that and you buy this and you buy that, then they can send you a nice ad saying, well, there is something you could be interested in. And the people wanting to pay the ad, he will pay. Is there any relation with your library? Yes, there can be, because, well, I agree that's some paranoid example, but think with privacy questions, you should always be paranoid, I think. This youth, okay, I will send him a mail to say, hey, go to Amazon and buy the great number 6 of Harry Potter, etc. I gave some other example. So this question is not at all a technical question. This question is really a legal and contracting issue. If you go to choose a software, Koha or another one, I will go again whatever the software is, you should care about this very important question, according to me. What is written in your contract? Two big questions. Is the reversibility guaranteed? So if I want to go somewhere else, can I get all my data back and do something with them? Very, very important question. And second question, who is owning your data? Okay, I put data on the cloud. Am I still responsible for them? Am I still owner of those data? Big question. In the free example I gave, no, not the free example, but in two of the free example I gave before, for example, in the case of Facebook, the answer is clearly you don't own your data anymore. The reversibility, there is no. If you want to get all the comments you've made on Facebook, you cannot. If you want to leave Facebook, all what you have submitted to Facebook is lost. But and in fact, Facebook never removed completely all your data. Facebook remembers that you were there once. Google Apps, the data owner is not that clear. Consider it's shared. The reversibility, and probably that's one of the reasons that you can say with Google, don't be evil. You know, motto of Google is don't be evil. With Google Apps, Google provides quite good API to retrieve all the data you have put it on Gmail or Google Documents or something like that. Amazon Web Service, to take an example of cloud computing technical hosting, is very good at respecting your privacy. And look, it's not free. It's a confirmation, if there is one needed, that when it is free, it is because you are the product. The data is the product, and you are the product. Amazon is making you paying for the cloud platform they offer, so they have money with their service. They don't need money with the data you provide. So in the contract, it's written you are responsible for the data. We don't look. We just provide technical platform. In the case of Koha, at which level do you want to put things on the cloud? There are globally 3 levels. If you remember the previous presentation, it's a kind of same differentiation of the software. There is a hardware part to run Koha. There is an infrastructure part to manage operating system, backups, monitoring, etc., etc. And there is service software. So service software, which is Koha itself. And if you go back to the 3 options I've talked before, you have the in the case of the local option, you are responsible of everything. So the privacy issue is not really a big question. You know you are you are owner of everything. In the case of Koha hosted in a data center, you are still responsible for everything because the data center is just providing hardware. You are responsible for both infrastructure and service. So you get full data owning and full reversibility because you are responsible of what you put on the data center. The cloud infrastructure level, which is, for example, Amazon EC2 services, is the same thing. You get some services. Amazon is responsible for hardware and for infrastructure. You are responsible for setting up Koha on Amazon Cloud, but Amazon, once again, don't care about what you put on your server. You are responsible and owner of all what you put on your server. If there is an Indian provider that provides services of Koha cloud computing at service level, meaning the provider says, I take care of everything about the infrastructure and I just give you an access to a Koha. Okay, you do nothing, you don't need any IT staff on site. You just need a computer and a browser, and you get access to Koha. I don't know if the free providers are doing that. Maybe yes, probably yes. Well, I don't know. Okay? But the main thing you must check is what you sign in your contract. Believe my company, we have 70 libraries under contract. That may look very small for India, but that's quite correct for France. We have 70 libraries under contract, and 30 of them, we host them on the cloud. It means they have nothing, no IT staff on site. If they have any problem except hardware or internet problem, they call us and they say, Koha does not work, fix it. Yesterday, I had to leave for 2 hours because one of our hosted library had a problem, and they just phoned us and say, Koha is no more working. It's yesterday we had a Koha work, fix it. So I had to try to understand with our technical staff what happened. I have a few minutes left. In the US, there is a company, the one from US here, outside from the one I know, no. There is a company called LibLine who made some very, very bad things with Koha. They, that was 3 years ago, maybe? Or now that should be 4 years ago, because time passes quite quickly. They were one of the first companies providing Koha at cloud level service. And they were doing bad things because the license of Koha is quite an old one, and there is a hole in the license that makes it possible to provide cloud at service level. So you provide everything, and in fact you don't give the software, you just give an access to the software. And they use this hole in the legal license to say, you get access to Koha, but you won't get the source code, so it's no more open source. Well, they didn't say it's no more open source, but it was. So everybody all around the world, all the Koha community was very, very upset by that, but we couldn't say, we could say a lot of things, but we couldn't do anything to fight against this, except yelling everywhere. If you are about to sign a contract with a company, check the contract, and if it's written, if it's not clearly written, it's the open source version of Koha, you get full reversibility of your data, etc., etc. Don't sign it because you will be locked in. And the main goal with open source, according to me, is that you get the power. Open source is a matter of users getting the power and not vendors. This is my conclusion. Well, this is almost what I was just saying. Koha is a free software, open source software, so you have the choice about how you want to deploy it and yes, how you want to deploy it. Depending on your technical skills, depending on your technical network availability, etc., you will choose a different option. Don't run cloud or don't run local just because you know this option is available. Check and choose the best option for you. Don't choose the cloud because it's high. At the moment, at least in France, everybody is saying, well, cloud computing, and that cloud computing is not relevant in every case. I hope I convinced you. Sometimes it's really relevant. No problem about that. But sometimes it is not. If you choose Koha as a cloud level service, read carefully your contract, and if one day someone says, I give you Koha for free, remember my talk, and investigate the contract and try to find what is the trick. Thank you. In French, merci.
Merci.
you, Dr. Bowen. I found that talk quite interesting as a case study of hosting applications in the cloud. Dr. Bowen mentioned some questions you'd ask before hosting Koha in the cloud. What technical skills does your staff have? How reliable is your internet access? Is the size of your library or your organization stable? And he also mentioned these issues about privacy. As a matter of fact, he used the saying, the user is the product. And I think that's important to remember when using some cloud services. And also you mentioned double checking your contract before you sign it. I think these are good questions to ask no matter what the application is, whether it's an open source integrated library system such as Koha or your email system or any other applications you might want to run. I believe we have some time for one or two brief questions before the next session. Does anyone have any questions of Dr. Bowen?
Yeah.
So as you said that you are providing Koha and cloud also in your country.
Yeah. 30 of our Zlib customers are hosted in the cloud.
So as you are providing in cloud, I think you are charging with that.
Yeah.
So which cloud you are using in that case?
We build it ourselves.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, thank you.
And our contracts are very clear. They say total reversibility. You can get your data at the end of your contract, which is signed for 1 year or 3 years, depending on the contract and what the library wants. And of course, we will never do anything with your data. Data are yours.
In that case, I think it is good, sir, because we have to not.
In that case, sorry.
In that case, it is good.
Yeah.
Because physically you have to not go there. If it is not locally hosted in cloud,
Yeah.
and physically you have to go there for finding errors.
Yeah.
So without sitting here also you can do the errors, mistakes, and clarify the mistake. That is the advantage in cloud.
And there is another argument that is a French-centric one, is that in France there are 3 companies two companies like mine, so 3 companies doing services on Koha. So I always say to customers, choose Koha with us, and if you are not happy with us, you can keep Koha and change your support provider. And that's a very good sales argument. Last question? No? Yeah.
As you are the launcher of Koha, so have you authenticated any provider or supporters for Koha? Have you authenticated them?
No.
No. But you are the launchers, you can authenticate some providers. Is it my suggestion? It's okay. In India, we are getting the support from outside.
We had a long discussion about that. Inside the Koha community, do we want to put a stamp to say this provider is good, this provider is not good? That's a question, right? In fact.
It's not a question. The lady has asked something. I would like to share with all of you that there is a project, national project at the National Mission of ICT Next. And the project is handled by Professor Koha of Vinno. They have already estimated cloud support for Koha. And they are ready to give what any type of requirement you have, whether training or data conversion, any type. This is a completely Z39.50 compatible tested server, and you people can contact Professor Makanjila for that. Thank you very much. No, nothing. It is free, totally free. It is so far totally free. You will be given training at your place. Your data will be converted without any charge, provided it is available in any format, whether even Excel data. No, nothing is to be paid. Even you, if you don't want to pay, you want to have a cloud facility for that one, you will be given the cloud facility also. Incidentally, I am also a member of the team. Thank you very much.
That's a good news. It means the next step now for you is to contribute, right? To Koha. Yeah. Well, maybe I should answer your question anyway. We had a lot of discussion about should we authenticate or put a stamp on good providers to say they are good providers, and we decided to list providers on Koha community website, and it was done yesterday, so I couldn't put Indian providers on my presentation. And the requirements to be put on this page are very low. The requirements are just prove you are able to install a Koha server, and if you want, give us information, mail address, and everything about at least one library that can say, yes, this guy or this organization is helping me in setting up Koha. So then in fact, being listed in this list just means this person is able to install Koha and provide some support. But we have decided not to put a gold support company stamp or anything like that.
I think we have time for one more question before we move on. The gentleman there, and then.
Sorry? My company, the pricing is made on the size of the database, so mostly the size of the bibliographic record.
Approximately for 50,000 records or another 1,000. We are providing the service to the temperature size of the library and size of the user, and you will charge. That estimate can be done.
It's quite hard to do that with, well, because it's based on bibliographic, number of bibliographic records, on the type of library, if it's a public library with wide opening hours, or if it's a small research library that don't need an uptime and 2 hours help in case of any problem. There are several parameters, so it's hard to answer this question like this. Just a rough idea. For a small library, for a small academic library, for 10,000 books, you said, something like that. That should be something like 1,000 euro a year, something like that. Just a rough idea. 1,000 euros means 70,000 rupees.
Thank you, Dr. Flynn. That was a very interesting talk and an interesting question and answer session. I'm sure if you have other questions, the speaker will be around for the rest of the day, and you can talk to him then. Let's give one final round of applause for our talk.